I have a car that this is a Porsche that is in that set of images with some different conversions here. This one has not been expanded. This one has not been expanded. This one has been expanded, and I did some things in here. Like, for instance, since this is vectors, you could say, well, I want this and this to be one piece, so I could use my Pathfinder and unite those into one piece. Another thing you can do with this, since this is vectors, let's see, I'm going to use this one. It is a 16 color. Okay, I'll expand that. Actually, I'm going to Command Z undo that. I think before I expand it, I want to do something to reduce the number of anchor points. So in my trace settings, change this to a 9 color. And again, I'm going to lower the number of paths. Gets my anchor points down to 5,208. And let's see, if I have less corners, will that give me a lower anchor number? No, I think it went up. I'm going to increase my noise level some so that I get smoother shapes, because that'll round off a lot of the little details where it goes from one color to another. Try more corners. That gets it down. Okay, I'm going to expand that. And let's say I want to use this for something that is vertical. Now that it's vectors, I can take my direct select tool and drag it across these bottom anchor points to select them. Don't want that one. And then hold the shift key to constrain and pull this down. And I could do the same up here, where I might want to move that over. Go right down to almost touching the car, but not touching it. I'll use the arrow keys on the keyboard and kind of stretch that up a little. And then I'll take just these and stretch them up a little. And maybe then here, and here, and here. Let me move these down. The reason I'm doing it by dragging across here is because I don't want to just grab this anchor point and move it, because these pieces are all cut to fit together. That's what it means by fitting them together and not stacking them when it's making the conversion. But if I drag across the anchor points, I'm selecting the anchor points from both shapes at the same time. I want to grab some in the middle. Well, if I do Command Y and go into the drawing mode or wireframe, then I'm not grabbing shapes when I click in here. I have to be able to touch a fill to grab a shape. So if I want to move some stuff down into here and make my background space a little different. Now, there's a couple of other tools that we haven't talked about. I think I showed you the smooth tool. I'm going to find my smoothing tool, which you saw on a previous demo, and I can selected. I can just run it along here and smooth out these shapes. Got a gap there. What else can I do? Well, I have an eraser tool, which I'll demonstrate. I really don't want to use it on this particular piece, but if I use the eraser tool and then Command Y, you'll notice that it has cut right through all of those shapes. Command Z, undo. So if I needed to erase this stuff that's sticking out here, I can just use the eraser and that will actually erase the vectors. I'll use my smooth tool here. I could select that first. Use my smooth tool. I could smooth this. This has a lot of anchor points. I also have a knife and scissors. Now, the knife and scissors are not the same as this thing down here, which is a slice tool. The slice tool is used for slicing art when you're making stuff that you want to paint in strips on a website. I think you've probably seen that on a website where you open a page and the picture kind of paints itself across when you first open it. That's been sliced. We don't do slicing on this stuff. What we want to do is maybe use a knife or a pair of scissors, and that's in the eraser set. So I'm going to pull this off of here. Okay, the knife tool will allow you to cut a vector shape. So if I just slice across here, that has made this into a new shape. And maybe I'll make that a slightly darker color. The knife tool will cut a vector shape. It will cut the actual shape, cuts the fill to make a new vector shape. Scissors are used to cut a path. So for example, here's a path. And if I take my scissors and cut right there, you can see that it has now split the path. If I want to put this up here, get it aligned with that one. If I wanted to do, nothing I really want to do with this right now, but you can see that wherever I put that makes it an open path. And if I wanted to draw something across there, I could take my pen tool and click on this one, and click on that one, and close that. There may be times when you want to cut a path like that. Move this back into place and hopefully get it lined up correctly. The knife tool will cut a shape if it has a fill. The scissors tool will cut a path. The eraser will erase parts of vector objects as though it were pixels. Let's do this one here. If I run my eraser through there, it has erased that area. I'll stick a red square behind there. You can see it's actually there's actually a hole, so it has erased that part of that vector object. To show you one more, if I can find it. The hummingbird is another image from that set, and this is a number of conversions I've tried. Two of these have been completed. This is the original image without any modification, and this is as a 16 color image trace. I'm going to set my paths low. Maybe increase my corners slightly. maybe increase my noise level a little, which will probably eliminate some small details in the bird and the flowers, but that's okay. Okay, I've still got a lot of information in there, 1,150 paths, 8,742 anchor points. So let's try 13 colors. Go a little bit farther to try to eliminate more detail. Remember, if you want lots of detail, you should probably just use a photograph and not a vector-based image that's converted from a photograph. The point of this is to simplify the image. And it's not getting much simpler. So I'll go with that. I'm going to expand that. Okay, you can see I did some things to some of these other ones. And what I did was, for example, I'm going to Command-Shift-G, ungroup that, and perhaps take these two and use the Pathfinder palette to unite those into one path. You see a lot of small shapes still in there. What I can do is Command-Y, go in here and take my direct select tool and just drag over some of these and hit my delete key to remove some of these details inside the shape. I can use my smooth tool and try to smooth out some of that. Have it selected first. And I start to get gaps in there, but I can fix that. You select that path and simplify it some more by smoothing it. Grab some anchor points here and move this down behind the other one to get rid of those gaps, unless I really like gaps. I could double click on this main selection tool, double click on this, go into isolation mode, and then grab these points by dragging across them that way and just shove that down a little. That would get rid of, well, most of my gaps. I could, again, I could combine things like, you know, I could take maybe this one and merge it with unite. The one above here, you get that nice cloud effect because I selected all of these shapes in the background and use a blue to white gradient on it. Some sky color gradients, sure. Just try some of those. Let's say that one. See if that added to my palette. You can double, okay, yeah. I could select all of these other ones that didn't get that color and apply that one or this one. Okay, so there's some things you can do playing around with the vectors. You know, once they're vectors, you can treat them as any other vector object and modify them in any way you choose. I think these right here. I'm going to just merge together. Oops, they selected the color of the little green thing instead of the big part. And in here, some of that green stuff is part of the flowers, some of it is the old sky. So take my eyedropper and select this, and I should be able to, nope, doesn't. Okay, I'll select this, use my eyedropper, and copy that. Works a little different in Photoshop or InDesign, the eyedropper. And Y, I might just go into here and select those anchor points and get rid of them. And then if you want to change some colors, for example, let's see, so I'm going to close that library. I want to show all swatches. The way these swatches were created was the colors of the image. Like for instance, if I select all of this image that's been converted, and on my swatch palette, find the upper right corner where it shows the palette options, and say, I'm going to pull that over a little. Select the palette options here in the upper right corner of any palette, and you get a flyout, and I can add selected colors, or I could add all used colors. You see, actually, there's a lot of colors in that one. Command C. I'm going down to this one that hopefully had a smaller palette of colors, and say add selected. That's better. So within that palette, if I wanted to change the flower color, I can do that here by actually changing this color. If I want this to be more red, if I want this one to be more yellow, it's a bit garish. Anyway, once you have the swatches that are included, you can go in here and edit the swatches. Maybe this ought to be purple. And a bit darker. Okay. Likewise, if you wanted to modify the gradients, okay, this is this gradient. If I go to my gradient palette, let's tear that off and move it over here. If I select this gradient here, I can change the angle of it. Or add a different blue in there. And then I could take some of these other pieces and copy that using my eyedropper. Select these and eyedropper. Or expand this one, you could ungroup that, take these two background pieces and unite them, and then change them to a gradient or a different color. So whatever you want to do, try exploring some other things that you can do with them after they're converted. But I at least want to see two that are based on black and white line art somehow, two that are some form of grayscale, and 2 that are some form of color. But remember, keep the number of colors low, keep the detail level low. You don't need to make a really huge file with hundreds of thousands of anchor points. The idea is to limit the number of anchor points. So that's project 4A.